been bombarded by messages from a certain ecosystem, lobby and political sphere telling you that the Ram Bhakts leading processions on Ram Navami were guilty of provoking Muslims, that the violence was a reaction to crude and boorish instigations. Videos of homes in certain localities have been thrust in your face, selectively portraying the pain of only one section of society at the hands of saffron provocateurs. But viewers, there is another side to this story, a story that remains untold, blacked out by a certain section of the media, by a certain political spectrum, because it doesn't suit their narrative. It's a story that can't be captured from a studio. It's a story that can only be told if you put boots on the ground and meet those who have been muted by mainstream Lutyens media because their cries will cut through the one-sided propaganda like a hot knife through butter. Times Now's reporters have uncovered the untold truth. Now, viewers, let's take you visual by visual. Our reportage has uncovered pictures of catapults installed on the top of terraces and mountains of stones and heaps of petrol bombs. These scenes are very reminiscent of videos from East Delhi in 2020. You may recall them. The toolkit is the same. The toolkit suggests that when a procession passes, target it. The only way you can target it, viewers, is if you have the arsenal. The toolkit, therefore, prescribes collecting material. And this could have gone on for days on end. The same questions, therefore, will have to be asked. If the modus is the same, then the questions will also be the same. It stands to reason. If the riots are a spontaneous reaction to provocation, where did this arsenal come from? On tops of roofs. Viewers, the scenes are the same. Karoli, Khambat, anywhere you look, you will see the same pictures. Khargone. Why would anyone dedicated to peace stockpile such deadly weapons? These are some fundamental questions. They don't end there, because the proof is captured in more videos. Have a look at this second series of videos that I want to put out. These pictures from Khargone in Madhya Pradesh. Watch this footage, viewers. This is an area where a procession is suddenly set upon. In the next series of visuals is a locality that comes under attack, where homes are being destroyed and ransacked. Places that hold sanctity for one community are being desecrated and targeted. The Ram Bhakts under attack are sitting in their homes or are peacefully outside the places of their own denominations. There are no clumps of saffron hotheads instigating minorities. But suddenly, viewers, these people are set upon. Did these places important to one faith of the residents also instigate the rioters? Locals told us that they were set upon by people they don't recognize. Where did these people come from? How did they materialize? How were a bunch of people who were outsiders suddenly provoked? What drove them to come into these localities and knock down the homes homes or, viewers, vandalize the premises of those who are sitting inside their homes. The next video, viewers, establishes very clearly that the riots were unprovoked. Shivam is a 16-year-old who was hanging between life and death for 4 days because when he was on his way to a temple, he was struck by a stone that cracked open his skull. You can see the bandages. For 4 days, he was comatose. Today, by the dint of a miracle, he has emerged from a coma and even spoke to his family. Luckily, viewers, he could recognize them. His skin spoke to Times Now, rubbishing claims that he was attacked because he was provoking minorities or he was part of some jamboree of goons. No, viewers, he wasn't. Listen in to what his family told us.
Okay, ठीक है. भड़काऊ मॉब क्या होता है? What do you mean that? What is भड़काऊ मॉब? भड़काऊ मॉब मुझे आप बताओ. भड़काऊ मॉब क्या होता है? भड़काऊ मॉब उसको बोलते हैं जो आपके घर के सामने आके बोलते हैं कि आपका रेप कर देंगे. भड़काऊ मॉब उसको बोलते हैं जो आपके घर के आगे 150 लोग खड़े और बोल देंगे तुमको जला देंगे. उसको बोलते हैं भड़काऊ मॉब. भगवान जी की आरती के बाद जय श्री राम का नारा लगाना उसको भड़काऊ मॉब नहीं कहा जाता. मैम सॉरी फॉर दैट, अगर आपको गलत लगा मैं कुछ जोर से बोला हूँ तो माफ कीजिएगा, बट इट्स नॉट गुड थिंग कि आप डायरेक्ट कहेंगे भड़काऊ मॉब.
Viewers, now I will take you to Lohardaga in Jharkhand. If confirmation was ever needed that this was a desecration by design, it has come from the authorities. Hear them talk about a well-planned conspiracy hatched by a sleeper cell. Now remember, viewers, Jharkhand is ruled by a coalition government, JMM, supported by the Congress party. For a large number of days after the incident, there has been a complete curfew in the affected areas. Even the cell phone reception has been blocked. There are no signals. Of course, this is in a state ruled by the Congress that protests any such imposition in any other state ruled by the Bharatiya Janata Party, but that's a completely separate issue. Viewers, you're now going to listen to the officials of this state. You will also listen to the official of the neighboring state of Madhya Pradesh, where in Khargone, the DM tells us that this was a very well-planned conspiracy hatched by sleeper cells, instigators from outside, a whole organized clique of individuals sponsored by who we don't know to target the peace. First, listen to the SDO in Lohardaga, an eyewitness we spoke to. Remember, we pierced this wall of silence by sending our reporter on the ground. And then, of course, viewers from Khargone, listen to this.
देखिए, स्लीपर सेल्स बड़े इंटेलिजेंट लोग होते हैं और बहुत अनेक रूप लेकर वो समाज में रहते हैं और गड़बड़ी फैलाते हैं, जिनको हम स्लीपर सेल्स कह रहे हैं. वो लोग आए हैं और यहाँ की सद्भावना को खराब करने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं.
ये कांड करवाने वाला शमसुल अंसारी है सर.
अच्छा.
चौकीदार. उसको सब चीज़ मालूम था, मुसलमान लोग कैसा करने वाला है, और प्रशासन को खबर नहीं किया.
आप कह रहे हैं कि ये सारा का सारा पूरा प्लानिंग के तहत हुआ था?
प्लानिंग के तहत किया है. हाँ. पूरा प्लानिंग. और ये शमसुल अंसारी जो चौकीदार है, हाँ. इसको सारा चीज़ मालूम था.
अच्छा.
उसके बाद भी प्रशासन को खबर नहीं किया. सिर्फ 4 को फोर्स हम संभाल लेंगे कह के, और यहाँ पर पथराव करवा दिया है सर.
जो हमला किया है वो बाहर के लोग से किया है. आप लोग इनसे भी पूछ सकते हैं, वो लोग खुद बता रहे हैं.
There you hear it, viewers. Our reporters, Bhavar, Govind and Aishwarya, you've been watching them for the last 4 or 5 days, have been busting one myth after the other. The question then is, who is behind these provocateurs? Who is the mastermind of this desecration by design? This attempt to subvert Sabka Saath, to undermine the peace. Who is it? And why is it, viewers, that the ecosystem has been blocking out this untold truth? Why? Fundamental question. Let's open this up tonight for debate. Let me first go straight across to our guests, Tehseen Poonawalla, Gokul Chandran, Dr. Ranganathan, and Mr. Amit Walia, the national spokesperson of the Bharatiya Janata Party. Now, Tehseen Poonawalla, simple, straightforward question to you. Will you accept? Will you now at least accept, after Times Now has hit the ground, spoken to people, sent our reporters, not relied on WhatsApp forwards like large number of people have done, like the Congress chief or the chief, aspiring chief Rahul Gandhi has done, or others have done by implicating only one side, perhaps selectively?
Good evening, Rahul. Thank you so much for having me on your show, and I'm going to be very brief here. I've been on your show a number of times, number of states where the same so-called toolkit that you say has been applied. And therefore, my central question to you, what is the Home Minister of the country doing, Amit Shah ji? And therefore, time and again, I say he must resign, because if this toolkit, which is an international conspiracy, is applying in our country, currently the Home Minister is failing. Either that or the Home Minister and the Bharatiya Janata Party, my friend Amit Malviya, are complicit in this because they want these riots to happen. Because the Yale University study shows that every time there's a riot, the BJP tends to gain. If the Ashok Gehlot government, and it should be held responsible for Rajasthan, I will never deny that. Why is Amit Shah not held responsible for Delhi? Why are Hindus not protected in Madhya Pradesh? Why are Hindus not protected in Karnataka? I end my submission by telling you one simple thing, Rahul. From 2013, Uttar Pradesh to Karnataka to Rajasthan to West Bengal to Kerala, every time there is an election, there is riots. Now, the other side is not an organized structure, but the one side which is always organized in this riot are BJP supporters and RSS supporters who are an organized militia that come and attack people. So somewhere down, either the Home Minister is complicit or he's completely failing. And therefore, tonight, we must stand up and demand his resignation. If there are sleeper cells in our country, that means he has failed.
Mr. Poonawalla, you're entitled to your view. You can ask these questions. I asked you a very fundamental question here. Will you accept now, on the basis of what we have shown you, that this was desecration by design?
Yes, I do.
You accept that fact.
Absolutely. The swords were given by some. Yes.
So let me finish. Let's take this step by step.
Sure.
If you accept it, would you say that Mr. Rahul Gandhi was absolutely wrong when he came out and suggested that this was some sort of a reaction to an action?
That's what Mr. Modi said in Gujarat. Action hoga to reaction hoga. You also put your reporter
Mr.
in jail. Let me tell you, let me answer about Rahul
Mr.
Gandhi.
Poonawalla,
but these are words of Mr. Modi. But let me now tell you about Rahul Gandhi.
When were those words supposedly said? In 2002. I'm talking about 2022.
Since then, Mr. Modi has become Prime Minister.
So that means that Rahul Gandhi is some empty vessel who echoes anything that anyone else says? Is that what you're trying to say? That he has no brain of his own? He has no faculties of his own?
If you finish, then I'll answer your question. If you have any more adjectives to add, then because I won't use such derogatory adjectives for anyone from the opposition. But since 2002 and these famous words or infamous words, that action reaction, Mr. Modi's gone on to become Prime Minister. But night after night, Modi's not questioned, Amit Shah's not questioned. Questions are of Rahul Gandhi, who's simply
15 years they were questioned, sir.
An MP.
The courts came out.
Questioned by?
15 years you questioned them. Sonia Gandhi questioned them. Rahul Gandhi questioned them. They were questioned by SITs. They were. Look, let's not again, dilation, viewers. Dilation. This is diversion by design. The question is never answered.
I want to say that.
Okay, I'm asking you a simple question. If you believe that there was desecration by design, if this ecosystem that feeds a one-sided narrative is wrong, then I want to ask you, are they guilty of misleading India's minorities? Simple question.
No, they are not guilty. Because this design, this desecration by design is being carried out by the BJP supporters on one side.
So BJP supporters are going in there.
There are two sides of the same coin who are creating this riot, so centrist parties like Congress lose.
So let's get this right. You're saying
Yes.
BJP supporters are going out there and we can see
Yes.
them on your screens. BJP supporters beating up Hindus. That's what you're saying.
Yes, BJP
Right,
supporters
okay.
were fundamental
Fair
Muslims.
enough.
They create this riot.
Now, viewers,
so
you
centrist
just
parties suffer.
heard
So the
this.
centrist parties
BJP
suffer. Two
supporters are
extremes
going out
create
there,
these riots.
desecrating the
PFI.
homes of people sitting peacefully
with
inside.
PFI.
It's okay. It's fair enough. That's
Yeah,
your
along
view.
with PFI.
That's
There
your-
are two sides of the same coin.
I don't know what you're talking about, sir. You
BJP
just said
supporters and
that
fundamental Muslim supporters. They create riots.
BJP party men are going out there and beating up Hindus,
Supporters.
thrashing them in their homes when they sit peacefully on Ram Navami, knocking down temples, knocking down other highly sensitive
You're twisting my words.
installations. No, I'm
You're-
not. You
you're
said
twisting
so.
my
You
words.
said so
No,
yourself. I asked you.
I'm going to repeat in 10 seconds again for your viewers to understand. Fundamental BJP supporters, along with fundamental Muslim supporters, create a riot. They both scratch each other's back so that centrist parties
Right.
and normal citizens
Right.
like you, me, Anand,
Right.
and Colonel here and Amit suffer.
So you're
This is
trying
what
to
they do.
say. So you're trying to say, sir, that provocation, the reaction to any provocation is okay.
No, I'm saying
So
this is
look
a
at how the
BJP toolkit.
Okay, fine.
This is a BJP
Let me bring in
toolkit.
Mr. Amit Malviya, spokesperson of the BJP. Mr. Malviya, you heard Tehseen Poonawalla. I asked him a series of questions. You've heard his responses. Go ahead.
Well, I was listening to what Tehseen had to say, and it almost
Okay.
seemed like he was making up a story that he was in a make-believe world, and that world is so devoid of any reality that it's
Okay.
funny to even comment on it. But Rahul, you have in the last 2 days have put out videos after videos and have corroborated it with evidence to suggest that this was a planned attack. It was planned exactly the way Karoli attack was planned. There are powerful organizations, Muslim organizations behind this, and it is being done with an intention to target the Hindus in that in that area, which is otherwise dominated by the Muslims. The second question that we all must ask ourselves and as a country, that why is it that every time only Hindu processions are attacked? The argument often made is that it was provocative because a saffron flag was waved outside a mosque, or there was a procession, or for that matter there was music that was playing that the Muslims found offensive. Now by that logic, a large section of radicalized Muslim men also find women who are not in a burqa provocative, but that doesn't mean they start pelting stones on them. I know Anand Ranganathan would say that the more honest Islamic societies do that, but we are a civilized society which believes that everybody has a right to live peacefully. This is not a problem that is relevant to 2022. This is a problem that's been around for decades, and this is the reason why India was partitioned on religious lines. So what we are seeing right now is basically an unfinished agenda of 1947. The Muslims in this country in particular have to agree and decide that if they want to live in a secular India, which is what they chose to do in 1947, they must believe in the ethos and constitution of this country. They must also be tolerant if they can't be accommodating of other faiths. But it must be done for the overall peace of the society. Pelting stones, claiming provocation at the slightest instance, being oblivious to the social mix and the milieu that you live in, closing yourselves in a ghetto and not coming out of it, are all issues that the community leaders need to take up. It's been several decades now, and the community has to reform itself from within. Their men and women have to be more liberated in their thought processes.
Okay, your direct response to Tehseen Poonawalla saying two things. Number one, that it is Hindu provocateurs who have done this.
BJP supporters, not Hindu provocateurs.
Okay, BJP supporters.
Be very clear. The BJP is not a representative of Hindus. They call Hindus like they call the rest of India.
Well, the procession was not taken out by BJP. The procession was taken out by Hindus. In Karoli also. In Kambata. In Khargone, everywhere, in Hooghly, in Bengal. I mean, there is a pattern to it. And let's not delude ourselves. The problem with people like Tehseen is that they cannot look at the problem in the eye because of their
Let me also
politics.
tell you, viewers, that these processions have not been taken out for the first time, year on year, year on year, year on year. But let me just bring in Dr. Ranganathan. In those processions, nothing has happened. In Uttar Pradesh, for example, Ram Navami was celebrated. That's where you have the largest number of Muslims anywhere in India. No attacks from there. Something rather strange. But Dr. Ranganathan, we are to believe that BJP provocateurs put stones and catapults, Molotov cocktails on the top of terraces of Muslim homes. They somehow got there, got inside, did all of this, planted this arsenal for the Muslims to use. We are now told that BJP provocateurs instigate riots to endanger their own community brethren, the Hindus. That BJP provocations must be answered by the sword. The reaction is okay because Modi said it was okay some 20 years ago. Some quote that is being attributed. The context was different, of course, but that's no problem. Man has been absolved. What do you make of these responses from Tehseen Poonawalla and the barrage, the one-sided barrage that we are getting?
Good evening, Rahul, and good evening to all my fellow panelists. I have 3 points to make, and I'll be very brief. Number one, my good friend Tehseen is there after a long time. Welcome, Tehseen. But unfortunately, you have yet again spread fake news. Modi, what you allege, Rahul, and it would have been better if Amit Malviya had corrected Tehseen, but he hasn't. In any way, Modi never alleged that. What Modi said was कि कल से एक्शन और रिएक्शन की प्रतिक्रिया चल रही है और मैं चाहता हूं कि ना एक्शन चले ना रिएक्शन चले. In fact, he was condemning this fact of action versus reaction. So it's completely the other way what is being portrayed by my good friend Tehseen. Number two, if at all, looking by all the tremendous investigative work that you've done, and I commend you, Rahul, for that and your team, I think two things are very clear. That even in this internet age of 24-hour video surveillance or video evidence or other evidence or witnesses, you will still find people who are going to peddle their agenda. And I take you back to exactly 2 years now. It is eerie. The videos that you're showing, Rahul, is actually, you could be mistaken for saying that they are from the rooftop of Tahir Hussein's house. If you remember the East Delhi riots, it is eerie. It's the same weaponry, petrol bombs. It's the same swords, dandas, stones. Everything is there. And do you remember, like Shivam's brother had to come out and say, what the hell do you mean by provocation? Do you remember what happened during those Delhi riots, Rahul? Let me remind you. Vinod was lynched. And do you know what was said? Why he was lynched? It was justified because his bike sported a Jai Shri Ram sticker. Ankit was stabbed 55 times. His hand was found in a drain. Do you know what rationalization was there? Why was he moving next to Tahir Hussein's house? Why was he going in a Muslim area? So you will always, and this was the same justification, rationalization of, you suffered the Kashmiri Hindu genocide, Rahul. I don't need to say this, I'm not being patronizing. But a fellow journalist said that Kashmiri Hindus, Kashmiri Pandits had monopolized all jobs. It was a mechanism for almost like rationalizing what happened to them. So the essence that I get from all this is that I'm sorry, but Hindu lives don't matter. And Tehseen does have a limited point when he castigates Amit Shah. Of course, I take that, Tehseen, especially in the case of Delhi riots. But what do you have to say about Karoli? When the chief minister of a state under whom falls the law and order is saying Modi is responsible for law and order?
You see, Dr. Ranganathan, let me tell you, our reporters hit the ground. It was not easy. They've gone through a very trying set of circumstances to do this. In Jharkhand, it was even more difficult getting in there because there's a complete lockdown, as you know. Not even an internet signal is coming out. Now, I would have to ask myself, why? Why? That's because the SDO there, and let me just play out what he said again. The SDO We'll play it out in just 30 seconds. The SDO comes out and says that there were sleeper cells at work. Now, Gokul Chandran will not want these facts put out. Tehseen Poonawalla will not want these facts put out, but what he will want are WhatsApp forwards selectively picked from some peripheral moment in time to play the narrative that this is a sign, like one individual who was recently stopped at an airport put out, that this was a sign of Islamophobia, growing rampant Islamophobia. Let's listen in to this SDO. He has been technically muted, viewers, because whatever he has said can't come out. There is no signal to carry it, so we had to take him on our microphone. Our reporter had to come out of that particular area and then feed this to us. And this is coming from a Congress government, Congress alliance. This is the fact. In Karoli, we went in, viewers. Of course, no one else was allowed, but we went in somehow and got you how Matloob was running riot in the streets, who, by the way, still remains at large. 12 days after the incident, he's at large. Of course, Modi must be running around. The Congress would want to grab him by the scruff of the neck and bring him to Mr. Gehlot, because you see, now the Congress has become quite kingly. They want other sevaks to do their job for them. Well, that's a different matter altogether. That's entitlement. But listen first to this SDO.
देखिए, स्लीपर सेल्स बड़े इंटेलिजेंट लोग होते हैं और बहुत अनेक रूप लेकर वो समाज में रहते हैं और गड़बड़ी फैलाते हैं, जिनको हम स्लीपर सेल्स कह रहे हैं। वो लोग आए हैं और यहाँ की सद्भावना को खराब करने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं।
ये कांड करवा
Sleeper cells, Gokul Chandran, sleeper cells have come in. The next individual, who is a resident there, has come out and in fact identified one of the police officers as an abettor. All happening under the Jharkhand government, supported by the Congress, JMM government supported by the government there. So Gokul Chandran, will you still go on and on suggesting that it was only one side, the majority community, that actually did what it did, or it's alleged to have done by individuals like you? Or will you accept now the facts? Will you say you were wrong? Will you say that you were a part of an attempt to poison Muslim minds?
Good evening, Rahul.
Good evening, sir.
We have seen a lot of videos from Times Now and outside Times Now ecosystem. So we have got a clear picture of what is happening.
In the state where elections are nearing, and we know both the countries, both the extremist elements, one backed by RSS, the Hindutvawadis backed by the RSS, and the other Muslim extremists who are running amok. Addition to that, even the Madhya Pradesh government officials are part of
this vandalization and looting. Now you tell me, when such events are happening in the nation, the Home Minister, as Tehseen rightly pointed out, the Home Minister of this nation, the Prime Minister of this
must be having well-aware intelligence report of what is going on in this nation. This is very clear.
Gokul Chandran, there is something called Article 356. When people can't do their own job, when they can't maintain law and order, their government should be sacked.
No,
the centre has that power. Under certain, would you like them to exercise that power, take over the governance of that state, put it under president's rule? Would you like the president to do that?
Rahul, you are wrong.
No, am I wrong, sir?
Where you are wrong.
How am I wrong?
Yeah, I will tell you.
You tell me. No, 1 second. I'll ask you a question which will prove that I'm wrong. I'll ask you a question which will prove that I'm wrong. Okay? I'll make it easier for you. No, let me shoot myself in my own foot. I only mean it, of course, sarcastically. Let me tell you. Viewers, Yati Narsinganand went bonkers in Haridwar. He's a hate monger. The chief minister there was asked, why haven't you arrested him? Matloob ran riot in the streets of Karoli on our camera, and I'll show you those pictures, guiding the rioters. There he is. No one is asking Gehlot why this man is not in jail. They're asking the Prime Minister.
And
yes,
because Rahul,
and no but. Yes, and but is Gokul Chandran and is Dr. Ranganathan. And first, but later. Yes.
Yeah,
but naturally.
And
yes.
Mr. Chandran, with due respect to him, slyly suggesting when he mentioned about the videos that you were showing, Rahul, he said, and we are seeing many videos outside the Times Now ecosystem also. Can Mr. Chandran please explain what does it mean by Times Now ecosystem? That a reporter from Times Now cannot go and into Rajasthan or non-BJP ruled states and take interviews? What do you mean by this Times Now, non-Times Now ecosystem? Please explain, Mr. Chandran.
Yeah, I will tell you, Arvind, because in the opening statement, Mr. Rahul Shivshankar pointed out some ecosystem other than the Times Now ecosystem.
So I had to divide it into
I never said
ecosystem and
I never even brought up Times Now's name. I'll tell you what I wrote.
No, you didn't bring Times Now.
I'll tell you what I said. Viewers, you have been bombarded by messages from a certain ecosystem, lobby and political sphere, telling you that the Ram Bhaks leading procession on Ram Navami were guilty of provoking Muslims. I didn't mention Times Now
that is the ecosystem
or its ecosystem.
So I am taking out Times Now.
No, do you want me to name
making a
the honorable members of this ecosystem? I can sit here for the next half an hour and take each one of them by name.
Rahul,
no, one second. I'll tell you, viewers, after the Delhi riots,
Mr. Chandran, as far as you saying, Rahul, 10 seconds.
Yes.
Rahul, as far as Mr. Chandran saying that all these are happening in election states, do you know one of the biggest riots has happened on Ram Navami near Havda at two places in Bengal? Is Bengal going into elections, Mr. Chandran?
Well, Rahul, I need some time to respond because you are bombarding me with questions but not allowing me to answer.
Please, sir. Go ahead.
The first thing is that you mentioned 356. You don't have to bring in 356. There is an intelligence in this nation which is looked after by the central government to warn the states, to forewarn the states of what is going to happen and what is happening in the states. Is it being done? Is it being followed? No. And you are particularly pointing out the communities, Hindus and...
It is not the Hindus or Muslims who are indulging in riot. It is the extremists, Hindu extremists backed by RSS and the Muslim extremists backed by you don't know who. And the only one thing is common. RSS is backing the Hindutva element and some unknown hand is backing the Muslim extremist element.
Oh,
so
unknown. How convenient. That is unknown. Here everybody is known and you will expose them by name. Viewers, again there is an attempt here at there is nothing to do, sir, with senior or junior. Let me tell you. The states have a problem. Let me finish. Let me finish since you made a point. The states have a problem when you send in the CBI. The opposition states say, no, we don't want to have the CBI. There are hundreds of cases that are pending because the CBI is not being allowed to go into certain opposition ruled states, viewers. It's a fact. They have a problem when the NIA shows up. They have a problem when parts of border states are handed to the BSF. They are so parochial and protective of their own right to govern their own states and impose law and order as they want and they feel. They call this an abuse of the federal spirit. But when they can't handle their job, they look to the center and say, where is the center? Let me tell you, local intelligence, sir, goes, hang on, local intelligence goes from bottom to up. That's why it's called local intelligence. You have local assets that alert the center. Those are states' assets. Anyhow, viewers, we are talking to a bunch of people who don't quite understand administration, but that's okay. The point is, and what is worrying, is that they're in denial. Even when they are shown the established proof, they are absolutely silent. I'm taking a 1.5 minute break, viewers. When we return to another big controversy. Don't go away. Stay with me.